The alien lecture hall was packed with students of every species, all here for one reason: to learn about the most confounding creatures in the known universe. Professor Gloop, a respected scholar of xenoanthropology and a gelatinous being who rippled with color and wisdom, stood before the class. Today's topic: humans. Professor Gloop's eye stalks scanned the buzzing audience before dimming the lights and activating a hologram. The image projected was of a human, mid-run, holding what appeared to be a sharpened stick in one hand and a loaf of bread in the other. Laughter, clicks, whistles, and telepathic waves of amusement rippled through the hall. "You see," Gloop began in his usual gurgling cadence, "this image captures the paradox perfectly. Here is a species capable of launching nuclear-powered satellites into deep space, and yet they still trip over their own shoelaces." Zix Snack, an overeager student with twitchy antennae and an unfortunate habit of speaking before thinking, raised one spindly limb. "But Professor," Zix said, tilting their segmented head, "if they are so technologically advanced, why are they not conquering the galaxy?" A ripple of tension shifted through the class. Everyone knew humans were powerful. Everyone had heard stories. But Gloop's response silenced the room. "Because, dear Zix, they're too good at it." A stunned silence followed. Gloop continued, "Humans have perfected the art of war to such a terrifying degree that they have, largely, chosen not to use it. Their history is soaked in it, yes, but their present? Curiously restrained. Not because they lack the capability, no. It is because they are aware of what they can do. They have tasted their own destructiveness and chosen, mostly, to put it aside." The room buzzed with disbelief. "Let me clarify," Gloop said, now pulling up a clip of two humans high-fiving after constructing a massive explosive device, only to immediately begin protesting its very existence. "They have a saying, 'Make love, not war,' but do not be fooled by their flower crowns and protest songs. Humans are dangerous precisely because they would rather befriend you than obliterate you, and they are terrifying because when pushed, they can do both with equal enthusiasm." A Nirasen in the second row fainted. The lecture ended with the entire class in quiet contemplation. As the students shuffled out, each deep in thought, Zix lingered behind, visibly unsettled. "Professor," Zix asked, Do you think humans would ever be friends with someone like me?" Gloop smiled, or at least gave the impression of it, which, for a gelatinous being, involved a subtle swirl of bioluminescent ripples. "My dear Zix, humans would befriend a sentient rock if it asked politely. Just don't challenge them to a hot sauce contest or karaoke or, really, anything competitive." As Zix nodded and walked off, Gloop watched the student go with a soft gurgle of amusement. The galaxy had survived black holes, neutron storms, and bureaucratic entanglements, but he had a feeling it wasn't ready for humans. Not because they were violent, because they were kind, brilliant, and utterly unpredictable. Zix had never seen the university cafeteria so chaotic, and yet strangely harmonious. The scent of roasted nutrient cubes mixed with what could only be described as charred joy wafting from the newly installed human culture corner. Colorful flags fluttered, booths overflowed with gadgets, and the tables, overrun with laughter, memes, and caffeinated beverages of dubious legality. It started with Dave, of course. One moment the cafeteria had been its usual reserve sanctuary of polite buzzing, chirping, and occasional plasma gurgles. The next, Dave had commandeered the central food counter and installed something he called a smoothie blender, which hummed suspiciously and occasionally sparked blue. He wore an apron emblazoned with, "Don't panic, just blend," and handed out drinks named things like Warp Core Waker and Quantum Berry Chaos. Zix had been hesitant to approach, but Dave waved the insectoid over with a grin. "Zix, my favorite arthropod. Come, try this. It's got caffeine, electrolytes, and questionable levels of cinnamon." The offer came with the kind of reckless friendliness that humans wielded like a weapon. Unexpected, disarming, and impossible to resist. Around them, the tables were alive with conversation. Alien students discussed everything from human holidays to why humans voluntarily scared themselves with horror movies. A group of oozing Bonian students tried s'mores, only to melt part of the cafeteria floor in the process. Professor Gloop, surprisingly, sat at one of the tables, a steaming cup of human coffee clutched in a pseudopod, watching the spectacle unfold with a curious mix of horror and fascination. Kalai, Dave's fellow human and possibly the only one who still took class schedules seriously, had set up a side station with what she called emotional support cookies. She handed them out with a smile and a quick lecture on the neurochemical effects of sugar. Several nervous species, including the hypersensitive neurosins, were currently in a state of euphoric calm, munching cookies and sipping cocoa from tiny mugs labeled "Humanity, Unpredictable but Delicious." Zixnax eased into a seat, still stunned by the surreal atmosphere. "Is this normal?" it asked, tentatively sipping the warp core waker. The resulting jolt made one of its antennae vibrate uncontrollably. Dave leaned back, propping his feet on a floating tray that hovered nearby. "For humans? Nah. This is us on our best behavior." The room burst into laughter as one of the logicans tried to understand the concept of stand-up comedy via Jordan's hastily constructed holographic projector. "So you willingly tell inaccurate stories in public to elicit emotional response?" the logican asked, blinking rapidly. "How is this not social sabotage?" "Exactly," Dave beamed. "It's performance vulnerability, our greatest tool of chaos and connection." Professor Gloop slurped thoughtfully. "It is unsettlingly effective." Kalai tossed a muffin into the air and caught it with ease. "Unsettling is kind of our thing, Professor. We do terrifying kindness and inspiring nonsense. It's how we survived ourselves." That statement silenced even the humming smoothie blender. The truth in Kalai's words echoed softly across the room. For all the laughter, for all the spice and spontaneous song lyrics and dancing sentient slime, there was a current of something deeper: resilience. Professor Glue finally stood and addressed the room. "As a scholar who has long dismissed humanity as myth, I must admit, I was not prepared for the reality." He raised his mug. "But perhaps none of us were, and perhaps that's a good thing." Dave nudged Zixnax with an elbow. "Told you! Best cafeteria since the invention of edible napkins." Zixnax chirped a laugh, antenna still jittering from caffeine. "This is madness." Dave raised his mug. "No, my friend. This is humanity." In the days following the now infamous Humanology Café takeover, Professor Gloop was a changed being. No longer content to observe from a safe academic distance, he dove into his research with the intensity of a supernova. His office, once a model of Bonian order and slime-friendly sterility, now resembled what could generously be described as a creative explosion, or, less generously, an interdimensional accident. Holograms flickered in midair, displaying looping footage of humans doing things no rational species would attempt. One showed a man leaping from a stratospheric balloon wearing only a pressurized suit and a grin. Another featured a child attempting to ride a ramp with a wheeled board over a stack of flaming trash bins. Gloop had paused the clip at the precise moment the child's facial expression transitioned from "I've got this" to "Physics just remembered I exist." That one became the cover of his new research binder, which he tentatively titled "The Hold My Beer Principle, an ethnographic exploration of human risk management strategies." Across the hall, Kalai and Dave had turned their cafe sessions into unofficially official Intro to Humanity seminars. Attendance had ballooned. Students now camped overnight in the corridors, hoping to get a seat. Professor Zix, the once confident denier of humanity's existence, had not only attended a session, but had taken to sitting near the espresso machine, silently journaling with the haunted look of someone whose worldview had been repeatedly and enthusiastically yeeted out an airlock. On this particular afternoon, Dave burst into Gloop's office holding what looked like a crumpled packet and a suspiciously glowing snack bar. "Gloog," he said with glee, "do you know what this is?" The professor blinked with all four of his upper eye stalks. "It appears to be an expired nutritional supplement?" Dave grinned wider. "It's a challenge." Moments later, Gloop, Kalai, and half the xenolinguistics faculty were gathered in the courtyard as Dave prepared to consume what he referred to as a spicy meteorite delight, a snack so potent it came with its own miniature fire extinguisher. Gloop begged him not to, citing several galactic health codes and 3 universal safety mandates. Dave, with a casual wink and a phrase that would echo through university archives for years, said, "Hold my beer." The crowd erupted when Dave survived, barely, and with a lot of hiccups. The legend of the hold my beer principle was born. Gloop worked through the night. He filled whiteboards, holo screens, and an alarming amount of organic slime with diagrams connecting various phenomena, parachuting into hurricanes, duct-taping spacecraft components mid-flight, and slapping a piece of toast on a cat's back to generate infinite motion. His thesis grew more radical by the hour. "Humans," he muttered at one point, "do not break the laws of physics, they just negotiate with them aggressively." By morning, he had constructed an entirely new model of understanding species-level behavior under chaotic stimuli. The working title, Risky Business, a comparative study of humans and other mildly unhinged civilizations. The model's core was simple but revolutionary. Where most species perceived danger and paused, humans perceived opportunity and invented GoPro mounts. Where others feared the void, humans brought karaoke machines and launched playlists into the stars. They didn't merely adapt to chaos, they celebrated it. And if they couldn't find any chaos nearby, they invented it for sport. The next class session began not with a lecture but with Gloop wheeling in a 6-foot holographic pyramid covered in sticky notes and snack wrappers. At the apex, a picture of Dave giving a thumbs up while strapped to a 0G jet ski. Gloop adjusted his slime visor and faced the class. "Behold," he declared, "the pinnacle of human reasoning, the moment when rational thought collapses and something primal, poetic, and profoundly chaotic takes its place. I give you the hold my beer moment." The crowd leaned in. "It is the precise psychological tipping point," he continued, "when a human, faced with challenge, absurdity, or the words, 'you won't,' decides that not only will they, but they'll live stream it, make it go viral, and probably sell t-shirts afterward." The alien students gasped, took notes, and, in at least one case, wept softly. Kalai raised a hand. "So, you're saying humans use audacity as a survival trait?" Gloop beamed. "Exactly. Audacity, improvisation, and caffeine. In fact, I'm now arguing that caffeine is not merely a beverage to them, it's an accelerant for evolution." That day, the university officially authorized a trial department of human studies, and the Hold My Beer principle became the cornerstone of its first curriculum, right after Memeology 101. The scent of something sweet and slightly alarming drifted through the corridors of the alien university. It was not the usual aroma of sterilized nutrient cubes or ozone-infused vapor snacks. This had a peculiar earth-based warmth to it. Burnt sugar, cinnamon, and... was that nutmeg? Students of various species followed their noses to the source, the university cafeteria, which had once again been taken over by the humans. Dave had decided it was time for a bake sale. Kalai, ever the co-conspirator in cosmic chaos, had repurposed half the food synthesizers to churn out cookies, brownies, cupcakes, and other earth delicacies. She stood behind a floating table, holding a sign that read, "Diplomacy through dessert." Alien students buzzed, slithered, and hovered around, staring at the confections as though they might detonate at any moment. One brave Vrox tentatively poked a brownie with a retractable limb, and when it didn't bite back, he cautiously sampled it. A pause. Then a full-body tremor of delight as the Vrox let out a high-pitched whistle. It tastes like friendship. That was all the encouragement the crowd needed. Within seconds, the bake sale had become a full-blown diplomatic summit. Alien students lined up to trade cultural snacks for Earth treats. A crystalline Thraxian offered a translucent orb of nutrient gel in exchange for a cupcake. An aquatic girl displayed an algae-based candy had grown overnight, trading it with pride for one of Kalai's infamous peanut butter cookies. Dave, naturally, had taken things one step further. He stood behind a repurposed smoothie bar labeled Dave's Interstellar Delights, wearing an apron that read, "Bake it till you make it." With flair usually reserved for zero-gravity dance battles, he poured neon pink smoothies into goblets shaped like galactic peace symbols. "Try the peace punch," he shouted, "guaranteed to resolve interspecies tension, or at least make your tongue glow for an hour." Professor Gloop had been watching the whole affair from a safe distance, nervously sipping what he hoped was just coffee. His gelatinous form jiggled with a mixture of awe and stress. The humans had once again turned a simple idea, desserts, into a full-scale cultural movement. At a nearby booth, Kalai was giving an impromptu lecture on Earth memes. She held up a holoprojector showing an ancient Earth artifact, the distracted boyfriend. A group of attentive alien students tilted their eye stalks and energy clusters to follow her explanation. "You see," Kalai explained, "this meme encapsulates decision-making paradoxes and cognitive dissonance through a humorous relational lens." "But why not just use words?" a puzzled student asked. Kalai grinned. "Because memes are words with spice." Meanwhile, a group of Stoins were attempting to recreate chocolate chip cookies using quantum replicators. The result was something that emitted a soft musical hum and briefly achieved sentience before devouring itself. "Needs more vanilla," Dave muttered, not even blinking. As the day wore on, the bake sale grew into a festival. Floating trays delivered snacks across campus. A tentacle-armed student DJ set up speakers playing a curated Earth playlist titled Beats for Galactic Peace Talks. Even the faculty got involved. Professor Gloop reluctantly accepted a cookie from Dave and took a bite. His eyes widened. For a moment, his entire gelatinous body rippled with joy. I understand now," he murmured, clutching the rest of the cookie like a holy relic. By sunset, the university's central square had been transformed. Alien and human students lounged on levitating cushions, sharing desserts and stories. Someone had strung up glowing lights between two hovercrafts. A group of sentient mosses had joined forces with a human art student to form a living sculpture in the shape of a smiling donut. And above it all floated a giant hologram, blinking with rotating Earth phrases in every known language of the galaxy. "Make cupcakes, not war." Dave leaned back, smoothie in hand, and looked around at the joyful mess. "Kalai," he said, "remind me again why we didn't start a food truck instead of taking classes?" Kalai laughed. "Because then we wouldn't get to do this." Professor Gloop, munching quietly on his third cookie, had to admit, maybe this wasn't such a bad idea after all. It started like most of Dave's ideas, with a question that no one else would dare ask. This time it was, what if we serenade the incoming invasion fleet? At the time, Zixnax had been adjusting their nutrient dispenser, not expecting that their next meal would be accompanied by an interstellar diplomatic incident. The warning klaxons had barely started to echo across the university when Dave burst into the student union wearing his signature apron, this time embroidered with the words "Peace through Polka." "They're here," he shouted, eyes gleaming with reckless enthusiasm. "It's time for our first gig." Kalai groaned from the corner where she was trying to teach a bioluminescent blob to juggle cupcakes. "Please tell me you're not suggesting we play music at them again." "Correction," Dave said, holding up a shimmering kazoo. "I'm suggesting we unleash harmony. As alien students scrambled to shelter and a few nervous Nerovians fainted outright, Dave led the ever-growing band of misfits to the landing pad. Zixnax, despite every instinct screaming in protest, found themselves adjusting the straps of a drum kit constructed from cafeteria trays. "We're actually doing this," they muttered. "We're going to start first contact with interpretive kazoo jazz." The ship descended like a hammer of fate, gleaming metal, serrated fins, and a low hum that suggested it had opinions on disintegration. The ramp hissed open, revealing an armored behemoth that looked like someone had asked a black hole what fear should look like and given it legs. Dave waved cheerily. "Welcome to Earth University. We're in sink or swim, and this next track's called Photon Torpedoes of Love. Hit it, Zeeks." Zixnax hit it. Hard. The rhythm came out frantic and unpredictable, just like their heart rate. Kalai joined in with a glowing saxophone she claimed was partially tuned to empathy, and Dave, kazoo to lips, stepped forward and blew. What followed defied every known law of physics, art, and common sense. The alien, poised to annihilate, froze mid-step, then tilted its head, then tapped its foot. The weapon lowered, the helmet cracked open, and a voice squeaked out like a helium balloon wearing a tuxedo. "Are you guys a real band?" Dave lowered his kazoo, grinning like he'd just checkmated a star god. Only the greatest intergalactic boy band this side of the Orion Arm. The creature's armor retracted, revealing a bundle of excitable limbs, sparkly merch, and a shirt that read, "I Earth Vibes." "My name is Blixer," it said breathlessly, "and I've been watching your transmissions for years. I thought maybe if I invaded I'd get a backstage pass." Dave winked. "You just got promoted to manager." And so began In Sync, or Swim's improbable rise to galactic stardom. Their debut single, Invade My Heart, dropped that same week and immediately went platinum across 17 systems. Their bizarre ballad, Love is Like Quantum Entanglement, unpredictable but beautiful, became the unofficial anthem of the intergalactic peace accords. Zixnax, for their part, wasn't sure whether to feel relieved or terrified. Probably both. But as they sat backstage during their first concert on the moon of Schlarva Prime, sipping neon tea and listening to Blixer argue with Dave over whether the kazoo needed more reverb, they realized something profound. Humans didn't just avoid war because it was messy. They avoided it because music, mayhem, and muffins were simply more effective. War demanded rules. Humans demanded rhythm. And the universe? The universe couldn't stop dancing. 6 galactic months after InSync or Swim's accidental debut, Dave found himself brushing glitter off a sentient microphone stand as the crew prepared to perform at the Cosmic Coliseum, a concert venue carved out of a stabilized black hole. Zixnax peeked out from behind the neutronium curtains, his antennae twitching nervously at the sight of the swirling sea of alien fans outside. "There must be beings from 1,000 species out there," Zixnax muttered, clutching his neon drumsticks. "And they're all here to party," Dave grinned, his eyes glinting with anticipation as he applied sparkle sunscreen labeled SPF 5000. "Remind me to invent something even shinier, maybe a kazoo that projects holographic memes." Before Zixnax could remind him they had a song titled Quantum Entanglement of Love to rehearse, their 6-limbed manager Blixer burst in, dragging a tangle of comm devices. "Change of plan. The melodious meeps from Gamma 9 are stuck in a temporal traffic jam. You're the opening act." Then came the real twist. A group of stern-looking aliens in official robes stormed the stage entrance. One held a megaphone fashioned from crushed star metal. "Hold it right there," boomed Agent Zorp, voice echoing like a bureaucratic thunderclap. "I'm with the Galactic Cultural Preservation Society and this concert is cancelled." Collective gasps rippled through the backstage area. Even the cosmic vacuum seemed to hiccup. "Cancelled?" Dave blinked. "What? Did we forget to file our existential declaration form again?" Zorp's eye stalks twitched. "You don't understand. Your so-called music is spreading cultural cross-pollination at an uncontrollable rate. The Wieblitz and Schlorps, mortal enemies for eons, were seen last week sharing a milkshake while discussing chord progressions. Zixnax twitched. Isn't that kind of beautiful? No, Zorp sputtered, eye stalks practically tying themselves in bureaucratic knots. It's chaos. Galactic diplomacy is based on careful resentment, not synchronized dancing. Dave's eyes sparkled with that very specific energy that often led to interstellar incidents or glitter-based treaties. Zix, Kalai, everyone, you know what this calls for. No? Kalai groaned. Yes, Dave said, already reaching for his microphone tentacle scrubber. An impromptu musical number. The stage lights flared. Nebulas blinked. Somewhere in a neighboring galaxy, a comet changed direction in anticipation. Dave launched into a power ballad titled Harmonize or Vaporize. The lyrics rhymed xenomorphic with terrific and somehow made diplomatic friction sound romantic. Zixnax, despite himself, followed with a mandible-heavy drum solo. Kalai unleashed a sax riff that bent space-time and at least one audience member's sense of reality. The Bonian keyboardist liquefied into synth mode, producing sounds that would have melted most bureaucratic codes of conduct. The final note faded into a hush. Agent Zorp stood motionless, clipboard dangling. That was, Zorp said, voice cracking, the most beautiful cultural infraction I've ever witnessed. I think I need to question everything I've ever learned. The concert went on. It broadcast across the galaxy, breaking both records and carefully upheld grudges. Afterward, as beings from war-torn systems mingled and swapped recipes, Zixnax found Dave backstage, unusually quiet, strumming a 4-stringed earth instrument he called a bass kazoo. Credit for your thoughts, Zixnax asked. Dave smiled, a gentler version of his usual chaos-charged grin. I came here to learn about the universe. Instead, I think we're teaching it something about being human. Zixnax chittered softly. And what's the lesson? That the fastest way to unite the galaxy, Dave said, isn't war or treaties. It's a shared chorus, a dumb dance move, and one really loud kazoo solo. As if summoned, their single Supernova of Love played in the distance, now the unofficial anthem for galactic peace talks. Zixnax couldn't help but agree. Maybe, just maybe, humanity had finally found their galactic calling, not as diplomats, conquerors, or traitors, but as cosmic party starters. And somewhere, a bureaucrat cried softly into their tax forms. The alarm blared across the university campus with a shriek so loud it silenced even the music club's eternal drum circle. Students of all shapes, slime levels, and species froze mid-step. Over the intercom came the dreaded phrase, "Unidentified spacecraft entering orbit. This is not a drill." That was followed by the faint but unmistakable clatter of mass fainting as the Nervosians collapsed on instinct, forming a writhing organic carpet of stress in the courtyard. Zixnax skittered in frantic circles, their mandibles twitching wildly. "We're all doomed," they muttered. "I knew this day would come. I should have taken that internship at the cryogenic sloth sanctuary." Then came the voice, that voice unshaken, unrattled, and all too enthusiastic. "You know what this means?" Dave, the chaotic human, had his arms raised like he'd just been handed free VIP tickets to a supernova. His eyes sparkled with excitement, not dread. "It means we've got our first galactic gig." Before Zixnax could ask what in the freezing void he was talking about, Dave had already sprinted to the quad, dragging a stack of instruments behind him. Kalai followed, holding a portable sound system rigged together with duct tape, alien batteries, and stubborn optimism. "No time to panic," Dave called. "Operation Serenade the Invaders is go." Somehow, don't ask how, the band In Sync or Swim had set up a stage on the landing pad. Their equipment looked like it had been salvaged from a science fair and a garage sale, but it shimmered with energy. a neon banner reading "Peace Through Bangers" projected overhead, courtesy of a borrowed student holoprojector. The alien ship descended like a giant chrome guillotine, all angles, all menace, bristling with enough weaponry to turn a planet into fine dust. Students ran. Faculty ducked. Even the AI janitor stopped sweeping and whispered, "Nope." But Dave stood firm at the mic. "Welcome to Earth University," he said, voice amplified across the panicked silence. "Our grades are high and our vibes are higher. This one's for you, mysterious invader." And then he began to sing. Zixnax, against every natural instinct, took their place at the drums. Kalai raised her saxophone. Yes, they'd found one, and launched into a soulful riff that could have melted neutronium. Dave's kazoo glowed with an eerie resonance, adding a layer of sonic chaos that somehow worked. The song, a power ballad titled "Photon Torpedoes of Love." As the final note echoed into the heavens, everyone braced for destruction. Instead, the ship's doors hissed open. Out stepped a tall, armored figure, radiating the kind of energy that said, "I bench press moons." The silence was heavy, until, "Oh my stars, are you guys a real band?" The voice was unexpectedly high-pitched. The armor unfolded to reveal not a fearsome warlord, but a creature with 6 limbs, a t-shirt that read, "I, Earth Culture," and a face that radiated pure fan energy. "I'm Blixer," the alien squealed. "I've been monitoring your transmissions. I came to see the music. This is beyond my wildest dreams." Dave blinked. "Wait, you're not here to invade?" Blixer laughed. "Invade? No, I wanted to hear you live." Within hours, the performance had gone viral. Galactic streaming networks were already dubbing it the concert that disarmed a fleet. Blixer became their manager, handling contracts across 17 star systems before lunchtime. Sinkerswim's debut single topped charts in galaxies that hadn't agreed on anything in millennia. Back on the quad, Zixnax looked up at the sky, still shimmering from their accidental fame. They couldn't help but laugh. Dave was right. Who needs war when you can weaponize music? 6 galactic standard months after their interstellar debut, Sinkerswim wasn't just a viral sensation. They were a movement. What began as a surprise campus concert had spiraled into a galaxy-spanning tour, media frenzy, and, somehow, a black market kazoo industry. Alien species who had once communicated exclusively through formal diplomatic protocols were now swapping Earth slang and bootlegged tour hoodies. Their latest venue? The Cosmic Coliseum, a decommissioned black hole retrofitted into a concert hall by eccentric Bohr quantum engineers who thought gravity wells had great acoustics. Thousands of beings floated in anticipation, their assorted appendages clutching glowing merch, their various respiratory systems gasping in excitement. For many of them, this was their first exposure to anything even remotely human. Zixnax peeked from behind the backstage curtain. "There are Schlorpians and Vibellians out there," they whispered to Dave. "Those species haven't spoken since the Octopus Treaty collapse of Cycle 782. Dave just grinned as he adjusted his glitter kazoo harness and applied another layer of interstellar shimmer spray. "Music heals, buddy. Besides, we have pyro drones this time. Pyro drone." Blixer, their enthusiastic alien manager, rolled in. Literally, all 6 limbs juggled comm devices while his central eye darted between schedules. "Quick change of plans. Opening acts stuck in a temporal jam. You're on in 5 microquarks." Just as Kalai finished tuning her grab saxophone, a new group stormed backstage. Their uniforms screamed bureaucracy. Their energy? Less groupie and more galactic enforcers of awkwardness. "I am Agent Zorp," boomed their leader, an 8-eyed being whose suit was so aggressively starched it bent starlight. "From the Galactic Cultural Preservation Society. This concert is cancelled." The backstage fell silent. Even the pyrotechnics drones dimmed in confusion. Dave stepped forward, unshaken. "Problem, officer?" Zorp's voice shook with official outrage. Your music has triggered unprecedented cultural destabilization. Species with ancient grudges are now hugging. The Schlurpians and Vibellians were seen harmonizing. You've disrupted centuries of balanced tension with bass lines and power chords. Zixnax blinked. Isn't that a good thing? Zorp twitched. It's chaos. Dave's eyes sparkled with that now familiar spark of chaos. Exactly. Before anyone could stop him, he was already at the mic, grinning wide. You know what this calls for? Kalai groaned. Oh, no. An impromptu musical number. The curtains swept open to a roar of light and sound. Dave launched into a new power ballad titled Unite the Night, with enough emotional thrust to warp space-time. Zixnax hammered the beat with mandibles and glow sticks. Kalai's solo bent several notes, and possibly the laws of thermodynamics. The crowd went nova. And Zorp? He dropped his clipboard, blinking rapidly through every color in his facial spectrum. As the final notes soared into the Colosseum's gravitational dome, Zorp sniffled. This, he whispered, was the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. I need to rethink my entire career. Just like that, the concert went on. Beings who had once launched wars over parking or planetary mineral rights now slow danced with their traditional enemies under starlight. Somewhere in the crowd, an ancient warlord was crying into his cloak while holding a glow stick. Backstage, Kalai leaned against a speaker, panting. That was reckless. Beautiful, but reckless. Dave flopped beside her, exhausted and grinning. Sometimes, the universe doesn't need more rules. It just needs a good beat and someone weird enough to follow it. Zixnax sipped a hydration pod and looked at his strange, wonderful friends. Do you think this is what peace sounds like? Dave shrugged. I think peace is messy, loud, and full of weird harmonies. So yeah, sounds about right. The aftermath of NSYNC or Swim's concert at the Cosmic Coliseum rippled across the galaxy like a bass drop heard through hyperspace. Entire star systems that had been locked in bitter disputes over territory, ideology, or the correct orientation of toilet seats suddenly found themselves humming the same tune. Literally, galactic news feeds were saturated with remixes of Photon Torpedoes of Love and footage of Zixnax's now iconic upside-down drum solo. One particularly bold species, the translucent Hertla, declared the concert a religious experience and promptly redesigned their temples with built-in subwoofers. Meanwhile, Agent Zorp of the Galactic Cultural Preservation Society was undergoing what his therapist delicately referred to as a cosmic unmooring. Once a staunch defender of tradition, he now found himself tapping his foot involuntarily during staff meetings and doodling musical notes in the margins of regulatory documents. His office, once a sterile temple to order, now featured a lava lamp and a suspiciously Earth-like beanbag chair. It's chaos, he muttered to himself one day, gazing out the window at a group of galactic delegates singing karaoke in the courtyard. Beautiful, horrible chaos. Back on Earth University, Dave was still riding the high. He strutted through campus in sunglasses that glowed based on his mood, currently galactic icon, handing out signed kazoos to starstruck freshmen, and scheduling interviews with alien talk shows that didn't technically have language compatibility yet. Kalai, ever the realist, was spending her days uploading meme-based diplomatic frameworks to the Galactic Wiki and creating PowerPoint presentations on cross-species harmony through chaos and carbohydrates. And Zixnax, poor, lovely Zixnax, was fielding so many interstellar fan letters, they had to start forwarding some of them to the engineering department for storage optimization. It wasn't long before the Galactic Council itself summoned Earth University for a very serious discussion. The entire NSYNC or Swim crew arrived at the Unity Dome in outfits that could only be described as post-diplomatic rave couture. Dave had opted for a cape made entirely of glitter-infused sheet music, while Kalai wore a jumpsuit with animated memes playing across her sleeves. Zixnax, nervous but determined, wore a modest exoskeletal polish that sparkled faintly under the chamber lights. Counselor Vrieg, a gaseous being contained in a shimmering cube, floated to the center. "We have reviewed the aftermath of your concert," they intoned, "and we must address the effects." "You're welcome," Dave beamed, throwing double finger guns at the assembly. "The Hertla have declared every Thursday to be Dave Day," Vrieg continued. "The Schlorp have started an interstellar baking show, and the Nebulox are hugging." The chamber fell into stunned silence. Somewhere, a monocle clattered to the floor. The Nebulox were infamous for their emotional unavailability, warlike demeanor, and aversion to anything softer than steel. The fact that they were now voluntarily engaging in displays of affection was the galactic equivalent of watching a black hole knit a sweater. Vrieg floated closer. "You have upended centuries of diplomatic stagnation with music and memes." Dave leaned on the podium, kazoo tucked behind his ear. "And yet, here we are, nobody exploded. Well, except that one guy during the pyrotechnics test, but he's fine now, mostly." Kalai stepped forward. "What Dave means is, we've found another way. War divides, music unites. And memes are forever." There was a long pause. Counselor Vrieg shifted from pink to amber, a sign of thoughtful consideration. "And your next act?" "Funny you should ask," Dave said, snapping his fingers. Behind him, a holographic curtain lifted to reveal their next album title, glowing in bright neon. "Dance Truce, Volume 1. The chamber erupted. Some delegates cheered, others fainted. One particularly stiff counselor simply combusted into glitter and floated upward, reborn. By the end of the meeting, a unanimous resolution was passed. In Sync or Swim would be appointed as the official cultural emissaries of the Galactic Unity Program. As they left the chamber, Dave turned to Zixnax and Kalai, his grin wider than the Andromeda Rift. "You know what this means, right?" Zixnax clicked nervously. "More concerts?" Kalai rolled her eyes. "More chaos." Dave nodded. "Exactly. And the next venue? Saturn's rings. Zero-gravity dance floors. Let's make peace louder than war has ever been." And so, with a new mission, new fans, and probably a dozen new intergalactic memes waiting to be born, the human-led band of misfits prepared to take the next big leap. Not with weapons, not with declarations, but with rhythm, laughter, and a kazoo solo that could melt even the frostiest alien heart. The final concert of the In Sync or Swim Cosmic Coliseum tour had ended not with a bang, but with a harmony so powerful it had knocked 3 satellites out of orbit. As starlight filtered through the transparent dome of the Galactic Council Unity Dome, the last echoes of their encore, an absurdly catchy ballad called Kazoo of Destiny, reverberated through the hearts of every delegate, translator, and alien lifeform present. Dave, drenched in glitter and modesty, stepped back from the microphone. He blinked through the confetti storm and turned to Kalai, who was uploading reaction memes live to the intergalactic broadcast net. "So," he panted, "think we made our point?" Kalai tapped her tablet. "Let's just say the trending tag is Peace Through Kazoo. I think we've disrupted galactic diplomacy permanently." Zixnax stood on one of his many arthropod limbs, carefully cradling a bouquet of bioluminescent flowers someone had tossed on stage. "We're scheduled to speak at 17 peace summits, 3 university commencements, and an honorary kazoo festival on planet Thwoop," he said with mild horror. Dave wiped his forehead with the sleeve of his sequin jacket. "Awesome. Can't wait to see what happens when we add interpretive dance." The doors to the Unity Dome swung open with ceremonial drama as Agent Zorp entered, clipboard clutched tightly to his chest. His usual expression of bureaucratic doom was replaced by something dangerously close to admiration. "Ambassador Dave," Zorp said, voice quivering with equal parts exhaustion and awe, "by unanimous vote of the Galactic Council, you and your," He glanced down at his notes. Musical Fellowship have been named official cultural emissaries of Earth. Dave turned to Kalai and Zixnax, who were now trying to discreetly high-five without Zixnax accidentally stabbing her with a mandible. Cultural emissaries, Dave said, blinking. Do we get a plaque or something? Better, Zork replied, tearing a ceremonial ribbon from around his shoulders and awkwardly draping it over Dave's. You get to plan the next galactic summit. Kalai leaned in. Please tell me you brought the portable dance floor? You know I did, Dave replied with a grin, and also a fog machine. As preparations for the next summit began, it became clear this would be unlike any diplomatic event the galaxy had ever witnessed. Instead of tense arguments over trade treaties, alien ambassadors compared karaoke scores. Instead of military drills, planetary representatives shared dance-offs and cooking contests. Galactic youth tuned into broadcasts featuring Dave's diplomatic kazoo solos and Kalai's meme-based history lessons. And Zixnax, once terrified of even talking to humans, was now the proud manager of Earth's most chaotic cultural export, empathy, wrapped in a glittery kazoo solo and topped with a joke that only sort of made sense. Looking out over the domed amphitheater as beings from hundreds of species danced beneath holographic fireworks and floating peace symbols, Dave felt something click. Not like a tactical weapon activating, but like the snap of fingers at the start of a song. Zorp, he said, nudging the stunned agent who stood nearby, blinking at the alien conga line weaving past. What do you think? Did we save the galaxy? Zorp sniffed, clearly struggling to keep his bureaucratic composure. No, he admitted. You made it. Ridiculous. Dave grinned. Exactly. Nobody wants to launch plasma torpedoes when they've got glitter in their eyelashes. From that day on, diplomatic protocol across the galaxy included a designated kazoo soloist, mandatory meme literacy, and at least one cupcake-eating contest per negotiation. Earth wasn't just a member of the Galactic Council anymore. It was the party committee, the comic relief, and oddly enough, the moral compass. Because in a galaxy teetering on the edge of tension, sometimes the smartest solution wasn't more rules or more weapons. It was more music, more laughter, more humans like Dave, Kalai, and Zixnax, chaotic, enduring, impossibly sincere, and utterly unafraid to be weird in public. The universe didn't know it yet, but it had just been diplomatically outsung.